This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan. And in for Amy J this morning is Chicago Tribune legend John Kass. John, silencing conservatives on social media. Is this a issue that is the proper province of Congress? Should this face a congressional inquiry? Because there's some talk of, by one House committee, the House Energy and Commerce Committee, of subpoenaing Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey for amid allegations that he shadow bans conservatives.
He's a lefty. His people are the people that he hires are lefties.
He fully admits, John, that his employees at Twitter lean left.
Yeah.
Lean.
Right.
Just a little bit of.
Right. Lean. That's what I do when I meet the peach from Calhoun County or a beef sandwich. You know, you lean.
Just a lean.
But I lean forward. I don't lean to the left or right.
President Trump tweeting about this over the weekend. Social media is totally discriminating against Republican conservative voices. Speaking loudly and clearly for the Trump administration, we won't let that happen.
Well, so what? You're going to do an executive order demanding more conservatives?
Too many voices are being destroyed, some good and some bad, and that cannot be allowed to happen, he continued. Censorship is a very dangerous thing and absolutely impossible to police.
Then why? How can you do anything? What's truth? What is truth?
Okay, Rudy.
No?
Well,
what?
But here's the thing, and John Hendrick over at Powerline blog had a good write-up on this over the weekend as well, and he points out what we've discussed on this show, what's happened to our colleague Dennis Prager, who's one of the great intellectuals of our time. Serious person, Prager University videos, popular, well-produced, thoughtful. It's not conspiracy theories. It's not hate speech.
The war against boys.
We're talking about Dennis Prager, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, cigar.
And
he likes to talk about happiness on Friday.
Well, that's right, and relationships and the rest. Prager, but PragerU is suing YouTube for downgrading Prager University's videos, even though they're popular and YouTube makes money when people watch them. And when that happened, when Prager University sued Google, parent company of YouTube, Facebook has subsequently shadow banned Prager University into complete silence to its more than 3 million followers, according to internal Facebook analytics. Our last 9 posts have been completely censored, reaching 0 of our 3 million followers, said one media personality with Prager University.
Are they doing that to everybody?
Well, this is the point. They're not. This is a first for us, said Prager University Chief Marketing Officer. While we've experienced blatant discrimination from Google YouTube, which is why we filed legal action against them, this represents a whole new level of censorship by Facebook. At this point, Facebook has provided little clarity in saying it will get back to us in another 2 to 3 business days, which in the world of social media might as well be an eternity.
So far, you're talking only about allegations. I don't see any. Where's the proof that they were shut down by Facebook?
Well, by the analytics tell you that the videos didn't reach any of your followers. We also, remember when Zuckerberg was before Congress and he got peppered about essentially banning Diamond and Silk.
Yeah.
And then, we're going to talk to Diamond and Silk, and we've talked to Diamond and Silk, and they really haven't gotten satisfaction with Facebook. So,
does the federal government regulate social media?
Well, here's the thing. And Hinricker makes this point, when you have simultaneous bans and suspensions across platforms, as happened to Prager University, or even Alex Jones, the phrase, writes Hinricker, combination or conspiracy and restraint of trade comes to mind. It may not be the law that I would promote in my kind of free minds, free markets utopia, but there are federal trade regulations regarding commerce. So there's an issue, or there could be. It's arguable. Hindraker writes, and I think this is a good topic to think about, the proper solution may lie in creating competitive platforms. Of course, conservatives need to start...
Conservative platform?
Well, conservatives need to start building their own infrastructure, build a good product. This is what we'll talk to Andrew Klavan at the top of the 8 o'clock hour, but we talk about this all the time. Write a good story, produce a good movie, and it just happens to be that it was done by conservatives rather than liberals.
Yeah.
You can't always complain about the left building infrastructure that if you had the talent, you could build. Conservatives there's talented conservatives out there.
They invest in it.
Well, no kidding. But he makes the point that has been argued, should these social media giants be considered public utilities? Federal Express doesn't refuse to deliver packages to National Review on the ground that they maintain conservative communications. Telephone companies haven't tried to cut off connections when two conservatives are talking. Why should Facebook, Twitter, YouTube be permitted to engage in political discrimination? 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line, 64636DA, turnkey.pro text line. Should they?
Well, shouldn't they be able to discriminate against some loser like Alex Jones? Like a phone, I've heard on this show, right? His lawyer saying, "Oh, that stuff is an act," right? I've heard you talk about it.
Yeah.
He's a phony. So shouldn't they be able to shut down a hater like that?
Take your calls, but now for more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by presidential historian, author of Game of Thorns, the inside story of Hillary Clinton's failed campaign and Donald Trump's winning strategy. Doug Wead has written about this shadow banning of conservatives and censoring pro-Trump content. Doug, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. Good to join you guys.
So what is your perspective on the evidence presented with respect to Prager University and others? Is the president right to suggest congressional inquiry, if not action?
Short answer is I don't know, but listening to you fellows talk, I was reminded of in the 1950s with the advent of network television, Dwight Eisenhower was very, very concerned. He spoke with James Haggerty, his press secretary. He said there's no way the founding fathers could have envisioned the power that network television would represent. And Haggerty said, hey, these are great men of integrity, Sarnoff, Paley, I know these men personally. And Eisenhower was very dubious. And they worked out some kind of agreement, which was that when Eisenhower needed the airwaves, they would absolutely give him, and the government would take the airwaves. And in return, the networks could have some independence, but they were limited on the number of channels they could own. And so the FCC evolved and all of that. So I see that with Internet right now. This is an unusual moment. I don't know that it's going to be resolved by supply and demand.
Can the government impose its will on a private company that's on the Internet? They might hate conservatives. Guess what? I'm a conservative. I know I'm being hated. I mean, it's not something surprising to me, but can the government do that? I don't think it can.
What I'm seeing with this current issue is how it's affecting the little guy. Since my article was published in the Federalist, I've received just dozens of emails and phone calls from people who claim that their businesses were shut down, that they'd say something on Twitter, suddenly they'd find their Facebook shadow ban their business. And the same with Amazon. All of them have the same stories, though they don't know each other. They're in denial for a year or two, can't believe it's real, face the metrics and say it's got to be real. Look at these numbers. And one of them said to me, I got a new identity, I got new bank accounts, I got new IP address, I'm up and running, I'm making money again, but I'm never going to talk on one of those social media platforms again because I can't afford to lose my business.
Well, I mean, so I'm on the board of a crisis pregnancy center in Chicago called Aid for Women, the advisory board, actually. And we've got an upcoming event with Mike Huckabee, like an annual gala dinner. It's a crisis pregnancy center, nonprofit. They help women in crisis with their pregnancy, housing, clothing, the like. Right. Crisis pregnancy center. The ad for the dinner featuring Mike Huckabee rejected by Facebook. Because why? Probably because it has pro-life in there, or because it has crisis pregnancy center, or because it doesn't have Planned Parenthood. I don't know. But so, I appreciate what you're saying, Doug, in terms of the feedback you're getting about how this happens to the little guy, not just big guys that can at least respond at some level like Prager can and is. And so, so this is the debate that we need to have. There's one sort of sense among conservatives. Obviously, censorship is with respect to the government, not with respect to private enterprise, generally speaking. But there are laws with respect to, as Hindraker made the point, with respect to commerce. And perhaps if you can't encourage them to be more open-minded about the content that they allow to flow through their channels, then you look at the law as it exists that the left would use against businesses with respect to improper restraint of trade and other violations of business policy, federal regulations on business, and you apply them to these big social media giants.
People on the left, too, are getting caught up in this, which is fascinating. I had an email from someone who said that they posted something that was anti-Trump, but they were using sarcasm, and they think the Google bots or the people from the Southern Poverty Law Center or whoever misunderstood or were operating too quickly, and they got shadow banned, even though what they were saying was anti-Trump. I guess sometimes the Internet can't discern sarcasm or irony, and they can get caught up in it. It's just reaching, in my opinion, preposterous proportions. My argument was over a video with Trish Regan and myself on Fox News, and I finally got through to some people at Google. They spent 2 or 3 days talking to me, calling back. They couldn't figure out why it was banned, and then they finally got the right person, and they explained it's nothing you said, and it's nothing that Trish Regan said. It's the crawler along the bottom of the screen, and they were the words of Donald Trump referring to this Russian thing as a witch hunt. That was the reason that it was being opposed.
Who told you this, sir?
A spokesperson at Google.
Now, we're speaking to Doug Wead. His story in the Federalist recently is these screenshots show how Google shadow bans conservatives and pro-Trump content. As a historian, where do you see this going? When does it build to some sort of critical mass where it has a real political impact on the other side?
Yeah, I don't really, John. I don't really know. I think it's gone pretty far already. I traveled back and forth to Russia, and I noticed the evolution of Putin's strength when he became more strong. I noticed they had complete freedom. They could talk about anything, but once Putin's strength showed itself, they wouldn't talk about him. They just wouldn't talk about him publicly, in a restaurant, anywhere. They just wouldn't say anything that anybody else can repeat. And now I'm seeing that among business people who use e-commerce. They can think whatever they want to think, but they're not going to say it out loud. Someone can overhear it. They could post it on Facebook or somewhere and shut their business down.
You're describing, Mr. Wead, you're describing Rat Cage on the Face, Room 101.
It's not big government. It's big social media.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
But big corporate and big government are twins, right? They're brothers.
Well, that's the whole. That was the whole appeal to Trump. Many people were concerned with both the Republicans and the Democrats. We had 16 years of the poor getting poor and the rich getting richer, not because the poor were stupid, but because the rich were getting interest-free money from the Federal Reserve, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. Big companies would get the Obama stimulus plan and not have to enforce environmental regulations. Another company would have to enforce those regulations. And people just got tired of the legalized corruption. And that was the appeal of Trump. This is a guy that they didn't want us to vote for, and that's exactly who a lot of people said, okay, that's who I'm going to vote for.
So they do it through the hip social media outlets rather than the stodgy, discredited government. He is Doug Wead, presidential historian, author of Game of Thorns, the inside story of Hillary Clinton's failed campaign and Donald Trump's winning strategy. His column in The Federalist John Kass just mentioned, these screenshots show how Google shadow bans conservative and pro-Trump content. This is a topic that's not going away. Doug, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
And he joined us on the turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect